Have you ever stopped to think how much of your life, your actual identity, is so tied up in, a few digits? Aadhaar, PAN.
Mm-hmm.
We put so much trust in these systems, right? But what happens when that trust is just completely broken? When fraud happens and the very systems meant to protect you seem to, well, look the other way.
Scary thought.
It really is. And today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. There's this crucial recent ruling from the Bombay High Court, and it's, frankly, a bit of an alarming wake-up call about the vulnerabilities in India's digital identity setup.
Yeah, this case really highlights some serious issues.
So our mission today is to unpack this specific identity theft case. We want to look at the details, the shocking ways the system failed across different agencies, what the Bombay High Court actually did because the response was incredibly strong, and what this all means for accountability. How is our sensitive info actually handled?
And we're drawing directly from the court's own words, its criticisms, and the terrible experience the victim went through.
Okay, so let's start with the person at the center of this. Vilas Lad, a Mumbai resident. His life basically got turned upside down when he discovered this identity theft nightmare.
Yeah, what happened to Mr. Lad was, it was awful. His Aadhaar and PAN details, they were stolen and used fraudulently.
How exactly?
Well, it wasn't just one thing. They opened a bank account in his name in Ahmedabad.
Okay.
But then they also registered a whole GST firm using his credentials.
Business in his name.
Exactly. And started issuing checks from this fake company.
Yeah.
Checks that then bounced. You can imagine the fallout from that.
Oh, absolutely. And the consequences for Mr. Ladd himself. I mean, they weren't just like annoying phone call. This was serious.
Totally catastrophic. He suddenly found himself tangled up in criminal proceedings.
For the bounce checks.
Yes, and facing huge financial penalties, too. All this while he was completely innocent. He was the victim here, a victim of impersonation.
The reports mention legal, financial, and mental hardships. Just sounds like a relentless battle.
It does. A constant fight just to prove he wasn't responsible for any of it.
And what makes this even more, infuriating is that he didn't just sit back. He spotted the fraud and tried to get help right, starting way back in 2020.
That's right. He wasn't passive at all. He filed complaints with, everyone you'd think of. UIDAI, the Aadhaar Authority, the Income Tax Department, the GST folks, Union Bank.
So all the relevant agencies. And he had proof.
Yes. Crucially, he provided documentary evidence showing his details were being misused. Clear proof.
So you'd expect some action then. What happened? How did they respond?
Well, this is where it gets pretty astonishing, really. Despite years of him complaining, providing this proof, not one single FIR, a first information report, was filed.
Not one. By any of them.
Nope. None. Instead, you saw this pattern of, passing the buck, deflecting responsibility.
How so?
UIDI and Union Bank just said, we followed the usual procedures for opening the account, verifying Aadhaar, standard stuff, basically. Wow. And the GST authorities, they just told him, look, this firm is registered in Gujarat. Go talk to our counterparts there.
So sending him on a wild goose chase, essentially.
Pretty much. It really shows that siloed thinking, No single agency took ownership of the problem.
So with all these agencies basically brushing him off, what could he even do next? His lawyers must have made the point that this was just wrong.
Absolutely. His legal team argued forcefully that he, the victim, was being penalized.
Right.
Suffering all these consequences of a fraud he had nothing to do with, while the authorities who should have protected him did, nothing proactive. They didn't step in to stop it or safeguard his identity.
It highlights that institutional apathy you mentioned. The system failed him.
Completely. He was bearing the entire burden of their inaction. And that's really the core argument they took forward, which, thankfully, led to the courts.
Right, because clearly knocking on the agency's doors wasn't working. He needed a higher authority. So the Bombay High Court steps in. Justices M.S. Sonak and Jitendra Jain. What was their take when they saw all this evidence?
Their reaction was swift and incredibly strong, a really blistering condemnation, actually.
Of who specifically?
They didn't hold back. They criticized multiple agencies, UIDAI, the GST Department, Union Bank of India. They called it, and this is the court's term, systemic failure.
Systemic failure.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful language from a court.
Yeah.
What specific failures did they point to? What went so wrong?
Well, a key finding was against Union Bank. The court stated very clearly that the bank failed to authenticate Aadhaar data properly.
Okay, so a direct process failure there.
Exactly. And this wasn't just like a minor oversight. It violated rules set by the Reserve Bank of India, their master directions on customer verification, and the specific Aadhaar regulations themselves. Core rules were broken.
So that's the bank specifically. What about the overall picture, the general behavior of all the agencies involved?
The court's general assessment was just as sharp. They criticized all the agencies involved for failing to take timely and appropriate action.
Timely and appropriate. Implies they were slow and ineffective.
Precisely. The court described their inaction as showing a complete lack of urgency and responsibility. It's just a deep problem, right? Even with clear fraud impacting an innocent person, the bureaucracy just didn't respond properly or quickly enough.
So after all this, years of frustration, agencies not acting, what did the High Court actually do? How did they provide relief for Mr. Lad and, maybe just as importantly, enforce some accountability?
Right, this is where it gets really interesting. The court didn't just talk tough. They took concrete steps. Strong ruling. First off, they immediately quashed that property attachment order the GST department had slapped on Mr. Lad. Huge financial relief right there.
Okay, good.
They also paused the criminal proceedings against him related to those bounced checks, lifting that massive legal stress off him. And crucially, they ordered the GST department remove Mr. Lad's Aadhaar and PAN details from the bogus firm's records. Clean the slate, basically. Disconnect him from the fraud officially.
Okay, so direct relief for the victim. But what about accountability for the agencies? Were there penalties?
Yes, there were. And this is significant. The court ordered UIDAI and Union Bank to each pay $25,000 to Mr. Lad as compensation, essentially.
Right.
And they hit the other involved agencies with 10,000 penalties as well. But here's the really key part, the detail that sets a precedent.
Go on.
The court directed that these costs should be recovered from the responsible officials within those agencies.
Wait, from the individuals, not just the organization's budget.
Exactly. It moves beyond just fining the institution. It links the failure directly to individual responsibility. It sends a powerful message. Inaction has personal consequences for officials.
Wow. That is a significant move. So, stepping back and looking at this whole story, Mr. Lad's ordeal, the agency failures, this strong court ruling, what's the bigger message here? What does this case tell us about, the state of digital identity security in India?
Well, it starkly underscores some critical flaws, doesn't it? How Aadhaar and PAN details are sometimes handled or mishandled by banks, by regulatory bodies.
Yeah.
But it's more than just individual negligence, I think. What this case really exposes is a big gap in how these agencies coordinate, or rather don't coordinate.
The silo problem again.
Exactly. It seems like each agency is checking identity in its own little bubble. There doesn't seem to be a robust way to quickly cross-check information or flag fraud reports across the system. So victims like Mr. Lad get stuck in this maze, and it took the High Court to cut through it.
So a failure of communication and cohesive action across the system.
Precisely. And that's why this ruling is so important beyond just this one case. It screams for better interagency coordination, for a real sense of urgency when someone reports identity theft.
Sets a precedent, then.
Absolutely. A precedent for handling these cases with actual accountability. It makes it crystal clear. Victims of identity fraud shouldn't be punished by institutional apathy, as the court suggested. Accountability needs to be enforced. Everywhere, at every level.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that the system's job is to protect people, not make their lives harder when things go wrong because the system itself failed.
Yeah, this deep dive really shows how one person's sheer persistence, plus that decisive court action, can force major institutions to face up to their responsibilities on digital security. A powerful and honestly a necessary lesson.
Mm-hmm.
But it does leave you thinking. Given the complexities, the systemic cracks this case revealed, what more do we actually need from our institutions, maybe even from ourselves, to genuinely protect our digital identities, especially as everything gets more and more connected and maybe more vulnerable? It's definitely something to keep thinking about.